Thank you for the blessings of this day and the blessings in our lives. Lord, thank you for the opportunity to bring the community together so we may work together toward our shared vision for the city of Milton. Guide us in our decisions so that we may leave here in harmony, having done good work that at the end of the day is in the honor and glory of your name. Amen.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting of the Milton Planning Commission to order. This is a regular meeting of the City of Milton Planning Commission. I'm George Ragsdale. This is a 7-member commission appointed by the City of Milton Mayor and City Council, created for the purpose of holding public hearings and making recommendations on rezonings, use permits, concurrent variance applications, the comprehensive land use plan and plan map, and other related plans and amendments to the zoning ordinance. I'd like to introduce the members of the commission. From my left, Fred Edwards, Commissioner Fred Edwards, Commissioner Paul Moore, Commissioner Jennifer Fletcher. On my right, Commissioner Chris Doty, and Commissioner Curtis Mills. Absent tonight is Commissioner Joe Kramer. The petitions will be heard in the sequence listed on the posted agenda. We have one item on the agenda tonight, one zoning item. I would like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures for conducting the meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present their petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by opposition. The opposition will also be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present its position. If time remains, the opposition will also be allowed to rebut. Since the burden of proof is on the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks provided that time remains within the allotted 10 minutes. The community development staff will keep track of time and will inform us periodically of the remaining time available for presentation. Each speaker, anyone who would like to speak, needs to fill out a speaker card, the yellow cards that are up here on the ledge, before speaking, and leave it with a staff member of the Community Development Department. All speakers, when they get up to speak, need to identify themselves by name, address, and if you represent an organization, please identify the organization before beginning your presentation. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made within the 2 years immediately preceding the filing of that rezoning action being opposed, any campaign contribution aggregating more than $250 or more to a local government official of the government which will consider the application, it will be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of the relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and have not timely filed the disclosure prior to this meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you should have someone else speak on your behalf. Each application has been properly filed with the Department of Community Development. Signs have been posted on each site. The matter has been advertised, and the notices have been mailed to the property owners affected by the zoning as required by the Milton zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission's recommendations will be forwarded to the City of Milton Mayor and City Council for final disposition. The Mayor and Council hearing will be held approximately 3.5 weeks from this hearing on the third Monday of each month at 6 p.m. in Council Chambers. The Community Development Department has reviewed each application in conjunction with various agencies and departments, both internal and external to the city, and their recommendations, findings, and conclusions are before us tonight in written form, and that's been made available to all petitioners and to the public. Excuse me. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so if everyone would, please refrain from any applause, any dialogue with the person speaking, or any outbursts. I would ask that you turn off your cell phones or at least place them on mute. All remarks should be addressed to the Planning Commission, and please show the same respect to the person speaking that you would expect to receive yourself. In addition, the applicant may not submit material to the Planning Commission during the meeting unless it requested to do so by the Commission. Any material that you wish to be reviewed or considered by the Commission in consideration of your application should be submitted to the staff of the Community Development Department and be included in the normal distribution of packages to the Commission. Finally, to the applicant, if your petition is deferred in accordance with our city zoning ordinance, you're required to update or obtain a new sign for reposting. Failure to update or repost will result in further delay, and there are no exceptions. I'd like to open the meeting at this point with with public comment. This is the opportunity for anybody that's here to comment or address the commission on anything other than what's on the agenda this evening. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment? Seeing none, I would like to have a motion to close public comment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public comment is closed. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the March 23rd Planning Commission meeting, which were distributed in advance of the meeting. Are there any corrections or changes in the minutes of that meeting? Hearing and seeing none, I would like to have a motion to approve those minutes.
I move we accept the planning commission action minutes of Tuesday, March 23rd, 2010.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we accept the minutes of the 23rd meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay. First item, Robin, would you sign the first item, please?
Yes. The first item is RZ 1001, 3105 Bethany Bend. It's a request to rezone from AG1 and C1 to C1 to develop a 2,100 square foot building with 4 pump islands at a density of 2,411 square feet per acre. This is based on a revised site plan submitted to the City of Milton Community Development staff on April 20th, 2010. Just to review a bit over what has occurred with this petition. Back on February 23rd, this body, the Planning Commission, reviewed a site plan, and the original site plan had a concurrent variance along with it to reduce the 20-foot landscape strip along Bethany Bend to 10 feet. Since that time, the applicant has submitted a revised site plan to eliminate that. That had also gone to the Mayor and City Council meeting. The Mayor and City Council on March 15th recommended to defer it back to you all. And let me just state for the record that on February 23rd, you recommended denial for RZ 1001 and BC 1001. And then after that, the applicant submitted a revised site plan to delete the variance. So again, tonight, it comes back to you based on a deferral from the Mayor and City Council on March 15th. So let me just go through and highlight some of the issues for this development. Again, the site contains 0.871 acre and is currently undeveloped. The site is located within the neighborhood living working land use designation on the city's future land use map. Let me just go over some of the standards of review. The proposed gas pumps and 2,100 square foot convenience store is suitable based on other commercially zoned and developed sites in the area. Directly south of the proposed development is a parcel zone C1 pursuant to RZ 85-194 at a density of 8,627 square feet per acre. Staff notes the revised site plan shows future interparcel access when the parcel to the south is developed. In addition, there are commercial uses developed to the north, northwest, west, and southwest of the subject site, ranging in densities from 1,341 square feet per acre to 18,240 square feet per acre. Staff notes that although there are residentially developed parcels nearby to the east and northeast, they are not adjacent to the subject site, and the required landscape strips and additional buffering required for gas pumps will provide additional screening. It is staff's opinion the proposed 2,100 square foot convenience store and 4 gas pumps will not adversely affect the existing use or usability of adjacent or nearby property if it is developed with the required development standards of the Highway 9 Overlay District, which includes but are not limited to site lighting, architectural design of the building, and canopy. In addition, the applicant has indicated compliance with transportation requirements such as deceleration lanes, turn lanes, and required right-of-way dedication. Staff does not anticipate a significant impact on public services and utilities as proposed. However, the transient commercial use proposed for this development may exacerbate a difficult intersection. The applicant will provide the required transportation improvements as shown on the revised site plans. The subject site is a prominent corner of the city and is designated in the plan as neighborhood living working. The revised site plan provides a more pedestrian-friendly area based on the location of the sidewalks and beauty strips along both frontages between the curb and the sidewalk, as well as the bike lane provided on Highway 9. The following plan policies are consistent, or the site plan is consistent with the following plan policies that were approved on December 21st, 2009 for the partial plan update to the city's comprehensive plan, stating we will encourage development that is sensitive to overall setting of the community and will contribute to our community's character and sense of place. We will encourage development of a balanced network of commercial activity centers to meet the service needs of our citizens while avoiding unattractive and inefficient strip development. We will encourage new development to locate in suitable locations close to transportation and infrastructure resources in order to protect environmentally sensitive areas and valuable historic, archaeological, or cultural resources from encroachment. Support development projects that provide increased density close to Windward Parkway, Georgia 400, and State Route 9, consistent with the land use and infrastructure development policies of the City of Milton and the citizen and stakeholder expectations. In addition, the Milton Comprehensive Transportation Plan recommends that Bethany Bend and Highway 9 intersection be improved with adding an eastbound and westbound through lane along Bethany Bend, which will help with congestion at this intersection in the future. Although the site is small in size and is located within an acute triangle, the revised site plan meets development standards of the Highway 9 Overlay District and development requirements for the site. The intersection is transitioning in uses from AG1 and vacant properties to commercial uses and varying density. Staff is of the opinion that these conditions support grounds for approval of the proposed gas station and convenience store. In regards to the site plan analysis, the building setbacks, the proposed, the submitted site plan dated April 20th does meet the zoning ordinance requirements for building setbacks, as well as for the canopy. The ordinance allows canopies over walkways or driveways to be within 12 feet of the right-of-way or right-of-way based on the street's functional classification. The proposed canopy is located 20 feet from the proposed right-of-way along Highway 9 and Bethany Bend is in compliance with this required setback. Regarding the landscape strips, as I indicated earlier, the applicant has withdrawn the concurrent variance for the 20-foot landscape strip along Bethany Bend, and site plan shows compliance with that, as well as along Highway 9 and the 10-foot required landscape strip along the south property line. The applicant has stated the hours of operations will be from 5:30 to 12 midnight, Monday through Saturday, and 7 to 11 on Sundays, and plans to sell beer and wine on the premises. A total of 2 to 3 employees per shift will be working on the site. The applicant anticipates 2 to 3 loads of fuel per week, which will be delivered during off-peak times. The underground tank is located just north of the parking spaces adjacent to the building. This location must be approved by the state fire marshal. The dumpster is located adjacent to Highway 9. And staff notes that the dumpster should be enclosed in such a way as to shield it from the street and with acceptable architectural landscaping materials. It is currently located away from residential areas and toward the commercially developed corridor. In addition, the ordinance requires the fourth side shall be a self-closing gate made from non-combustible materials. The revised site plan and associated renderings indicate compliance with the requirement of the ordinance. The dumpster is now within a structure that appears to be a part of the main building. The detention areas are located underground on the subject site along the northern portion of the property. The City of Milton Fire Marshal has made some additional comments just stating various state and local regulations must be met prior to the construction of it. Also, the fire department met with the applicant, and it was determined that one opening in the 4-board equestrian fencing shall be provided along both Highway 9 and Bethany Bend for access by the fire department. The applicant has stated that a new fire hydrant will be installed along Bethany Bend Road as required by the fire department. Since that meeting, the fire department has determined that an additional fire hydrant may be required depending on the outcome of the engineering of the site. In addition, the necessary number of FDCs or fire department connections will be installed along Highway 9 in Bethany Bend. Staff will reflect these requirements in the recommended conditions. This application with the revised site plan, it wasn't this exact site plan, but it was a revised site plan, went back to the Design Review Board, courtesy review on April 13th, 2010. They had various statements regarding the parking along the northern end of the site did not function correctly for maneuverability. Sidewalk along Highway 9 goes into the drive aisle. I believe that that's been worked on. Additional treatment of the dumpster. Height should be the same as the building and provide a garage-like door. Match canopy style to the building. Locate bicycle parking on the site. Relocate air and vacuum. Provide the required 25% fenestration on the building. And they say the applicant addressed issues of the DRB from the last meeting and the traffic flow has improved. In conclusion, the proposed gas station and associated gas pumps are consistent with planned policies. Although the site is small and located within an acute triangle with 2 road frontages, the revised site plan submitted on April 20th, 2010 meets the development standards required by the City of Milton zoning ordinance, which ameliorates potential negative impacts on nearby residential uses. Therefore, staff recommends approval conditional of RZ 1001 to rezone to C1 to develop a gas station and convenience store. If the mayor and City Council recommends approval, staff provides the following conditions. I would also like to point out the latest changes to the conditions. I believe you all have a copy of it as well as the applicant. If you go to condition 1A on page 24, it now reads retail, commercial, and accessory uses at a maximum density of 2,411 gross floor area per acre zone, or a total of gross floor area of 2,100 square feet, and a total of 4 gasoline pumps. Whichever is less, or we'll note the 4 gasoline pumps after whichever is less. But excluding fast food restaurants, commercial amusements, cinemas not included, packaged liquor sales, restaurants may sell liquor by the drink, motels, hotels, adult entertainment, etc. The rest remaining is the same. If you go on to condition 3, C, D, and E, those are, I think there's one that's been added and the other ones have been amended. But C reads, provide new fire hydrant or hydrants along Bethany Bend as approved by the fire marshal and fire chief. D, provide the required fire department connections along Highway 9 and Bethany Bend for fire department staging off-site as approved by the fire marshal and fire chief. E, provide fire department accesses along Bethany Bend and Highway 9 with the minimum opening of the equestrian style fence of 8 feet as approved by the fire marshal and fire chief. So that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions for staff at this point? I have one. On the last condition that you read for the fire department, what does that mean? Literally a gap in the fence? That's what
Correct.
you proposed?
Right.
And any specific location or just anywhere along there that allows access?
Right. We were working with the applicant and with the fire marshal and fire chief, and until everything is engineered and they know exactly what would be the best position, we're just leaving it open per the approval of the fire chief.
And can they plant something in that opening, or does
No.
it have to be an unobstructed opening? So
And
there's-
right.
okay,
And in fact,
unobstructed.
we want to have a sidewalk from the parallel sidewalk perpendicular into the site.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Any other questions for staff at this time? Okay. Mr. Hendricks?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Pete Hendricks, practice law at 6085 Lake Forest Drive in Sandy Springs. Robin has so thoroughly gone through the staff review and analysis, I'm not going to trip over myself trying to go back and highlight, except I would like to point out two things which I think are very important. On page 11 of the staff review and analysis, whether the property to be affected by the proposal has a reasonable economic use as currently zoned. The bare tip of this is zoned to the C1 classification. The better part of it is zoned to the AG1 classification. So staff notes that the subject site does not have a reasonable use currently zoned, primarily AG1 and a small piece C1. And then spilling over as to any potential adverse environmental ramifications. That starts at the bottom of page 12 and at the top of page 13. The staff concludes that the proposed use will not be environmentally adverse to the natural resources, environment, and citizens of the city due to the required development regulations as it pertains to detention, retention, aesthetics, and underground gas tanks and gas pumps on the site. I then would just like to go over with you, Robin, can we, or Lynn, can we have the site plan up? So, okay, if I can have a timeout here so I can let her get the site plan up in front of you, please.
Clock stop. Add back 3 seconds. We have this.
Okay. Well, oh, great. Okay. Well, then let's just go right ahead because that's what I've got in front of me. Responding to a comment that was made last go-round when we were in front of you, and also comment that was made by the Design Review Board. The following, I think, highlights the major modifications and changes in the application and the request. Number one, obviously, is the withdrawal of the concurrent variance. The one that asked for the reduction in the landscape strip along Bethany Bend from 20 feet to 10 feet. Then originally the first application had a total of 6 pumps. When we last in front of you, we had 5 pumps, and I know you all asked the question of the applicant, do you really have to have that 5th pump? And upon review and analysis, we have dropped that 5th pump. So there now is a total of 4 pumps. The building has gone from a total square footage of 2,400 square feet to 2,100 square feet. There had been an emissions component that has been deleted over concerns of congestion, trying to get to and from the emissions facility. The air and vac component has been moved up from the top corner of the property down to the side of the building and has been taken out of the southerly landscape strip where originally it had appeared. We have provided, and you'll see on the site plan along Bethany Bend and Highway 9, the landscaping treatment to give the visual protection along both of those highways. We have gone ahead and shown with specificity where the interparcel access would come into play, and we further have agreed to go ahead on the ground and actually put in a stub there. So there will be paving there and there will be curb and gutter there, much like you would do if you were a residential developer and we're going to do phase 1 of your development, take your streets up to the edge of then phase 2. There's full and complete compliance now with the landscape strip, sidewalks, and bike paths. The dumpster area, again, DRB asked that please try and make that look like that it's a part of the building, that the structure itself is a part of the building. So architecturally, we have responded to that, and I think have achieved that. But also, as far as any cut-through is concerned, I think it was a bit contorted in the first place to really envision any level of cut-through. But what we have done, if you will look in the lower right-hand corner of that site plan that you've got in front of you, coming off of Bethany Bend, we've got an internal sidewalk that comes into the corner of the building, and that'll be sort of a raised paver effect. And so that in and of itself should give some deterrent as far as interparcel access is concerned. Also, staff in its review and analysis, when we last were in front of you, we had it gave you benefit of the light study that had been done, and the staff has noted that the lighting that's being proposed by the applicant is more restrictive than what the city's night sky ordinance provides for, and that the applicant will in turn be restricted to that more restricted lighting plan. I think that pretty much highlights the main points of modification and amendment that we have made to the application. Brad Riffle is here to be able to respond to any site planning issues that you might have. But we've also got traffic comment. Abdul is here to be able to give traffic comment to any questions you might have on that front. So at this point, I'd like to reserve any rest of our time for rebuttal, and at such time you do visit this application for consideration on a recommendation, we would ask that you follow the staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Anyone here that would like to speak in opposition?
And before, if you all would like, Mrs. Jones has asked for her letter to be read into the record. So,
Want me to do
you want
that?
me to do it? You can do it now, and then I'll be collecting. But
All right, hang on just a minute. Let me read her
Yeah.
letter into the record, and then we'll get started.
do you want it to be part of the time? Yeah.
No,
Okay.
it'll take most of the time to read it into the record. This is a letter from Sandy Jones, who's a resident at 1125 South Bethany Creek Drive in Milton. Dear members of the City of Milton Planning Commission, first let me state that I am a proponent of responsible development. I believe that quality and sustainable commercial development is a necessary part of any successful community. I'm a resident of the Bethany Bend area. I'm writing to express my continued concern regarding the impact of the proposed gas station, petition RZ 10-01, at the corner of Highway 9 and Bethany Bend. Although the applicant has worked to meet the required development standards, several issues of concern still remain and warrant consideration. First point, the proposed development continues to be too intense for the size of the property. Point 2, the intersection is problematic and should not have additional uses added that will exacerbate the situation. The CVS site, which is located across the street on Bethany Bend, was rezoned in 2006 with conditions prohibiting fast food establishments and service stations due to their intensive vehicle-based dynamic, which would further burden this problematic intersection. From the City of Milton staff report, quote, whether the proposal will result in a use which will or could cause an excessive or burdensome use of existing streets, transportation facilities, utilities, or schools, staff does not anticipate a significant impact on public services and utilities as proposed. However, the transient commercial use proposed for this development may exacerbate a difficult intersection. Point 3, the site plan does not prevent or address the issue of cut-through traffic from Highway 9 to Bethany Bend and the change in vehicular traffic patterns which will result from this development. Point 4, the gas station does not complement adjacent development. The site is across the street from Bellmead subdivision, a development of 2-acre estate lots. Point 5, the hours of proposed operation are not consistent with the retail and commercial establishments in the area.
Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry, indigestion. This is a residential-based commercial area, and the businesses in the area have hours of operation that support that. I'm not going to read all of these. She lists hours of operation for the proposed gas station, which are 5:30 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Saturday, and 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Sunday. She lists the hours for the CVS, Zaxby's, Wendy's, the Publix, the beverage shop, Quantum Bank, and Starbucks, all of which, the earliest of which is the Starbucks opening at 5:30, and they are kind of all over the map as late as 10:30 opening, and most, if not all, I think, close before midnight. The latest one I see is 10 p.m. She also cites the vision statement for the City of Milton. Milton's a distinctive community embracing small-town life and heritage while preserving and enhancing our rural character. Within a 2 to 3 minute drive in either direction of this proposed location, there's an existing gas station. We voted for the City of Milton in order to keep our small-town distinctive community feel. Please do not make our community like a Roswell Road in Sandy Springs and Roswell or Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. If I wanted to have every service and commercial retail offering available in my immediate vicinity, I, like many others, would not have chosen to live in Milton. Placement of a gas station at this intersection will have a negative impact for nearby residents and for all who navigate this intersection on a regular basis. Therefore, I ask that the Planning Commission recommend denial of RZ 10-01. Sandy. Okay.
We have 3 comment cards. One, they wish to have read into the record, and the other 2 will call up.
Okay.
So, go ahead. This is Craig Kaufman, 555 Parkbrook Trace, Alpharetta, Georgia, 30004. He states, "This is a worse place for a gas station than across the street, and DOT recommended a gas station not to be allowed there." Okay. And then the next person up is Roger Hunter.
Hi there, Roger Hunter, 2080 North Bethany Creek Drive. I live in North Bethany Creek there. It seems to me that, nothing has changed. The land hasn't gotten larger since we were here last. They have reduced it down by a pump, but I still think it's too much on too small a piece of property. I can drive north on Highway 9 to McFarland. There's an open space there where there was a BP that's been sitting there for years that they can't build on. I mean, nobody wants it. It's just, there's too many gas stations. I go to work and I come home every day. I've never run out of gas between my house on North Bethany Creek Drive and me getting up to Windward. I mean, there's gas stations aplenty out there. We're talking about a high school that's going to open up here in a year or two. It's going to have 1,500, 1,900 students to it. These kids are all going to want to come to convenience stores. This is going to be a nightmare. It already is a nightmare. In the morning, almost constantly, I'm trying to make a left onto Highway 9, and people coming across from me, they're turning right. When I've got the green arrow, they shouldn't be doing that. That's one problem that's there. And now we're going to put a gas station on this corner, and there's going to be even more people trying to come out of there. This is going to be a wreck waiting to happen. Thank you.
The next person with a card is Sharon Joseph.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Joseph, and I live at 13800 Oakmead Trace in Milton. And I represent the property that is the closest residence to the proposed gas station right across the street, Bethany Bend. And my husband and I have concerns because of the lack of transitional space between the proposed property and our property, because the street is the only space between them, because our property goes right up to Bethany Bend, and we're right across the street from that. He has talked about lighting, and the lighting being the even more conservative than what the Milton standards are. However, with the truck coming out in the winter, there's no leaves on the trees between our property and this property, so there will be lighting overflow. And especially as the truck comes out, and the way that they've changed the exit, the truck lights will shine right into our bedroom windows on that side of the house. And so that will definitely impact our quality of life living where we live. As has already been noted, but I want to reinforce the rural character our subdivision does. The vast majority of the lots are 2 to 5 acre lots, and that's the rural community that Milton is in the mission statement, and we'd like to keep that. The intensity of the gas station proposal is not consistent with the rural setting that Milton has in their mission statement. The other concern we have is the music and announcements that are typical at gas stations, playing all the time and announcements going all the time, and the impact that that will have on our property right across the street as well as other residences around. Also, consistent with convenience stores such as they're proposing, is not only the sale of the beer and wine, which is allowed in other locations on that corner, but also my concern, and maybe this is old-fashioned, but my concern is the sale of inappropriate literature, pornography, is many times sold at convenience stores. And I'm concerned about the children of our community just having more exposure to the beer and wine, and also literature that is not conducive to a wholesome community like I believe Milton wants to be. Regarding the intensity of the property, the staff did not mention the cut-through traffic, which has already been addressed, I believe, but also the parking. We have concerns about the parking spaces for the 3 employees that are going to be there, and the limited parking that's there already, parking availability for others that are needing to go in there and conduct their business. So, as a representative of our community, I respectfully request that you not recommend the development as has been proposed. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Okay. Mr. Hendricks, do you want any rebuttal? I think you have 4 minutes and 32 seconds left. Plus 3 seconds.
Yeah, I would like to point out in response to a number of the comments that were made here. Staff on page 12, with particular emphasis from my perspective on planned policies, saying we will encourage development of a balanced network of commercial activity centers to meet the service needs of our citizens while avoiding unattractive and inefficient strip development. This is a balancing out of the service needs that comes under the service commercial retail C1 classification to which the property is sought to be rezoned. As far as transitioning is concerned, staff then coming down on paragraph 6 of that same page says the intersection is transitioning in uses from AG1 agricultural and vacant properties to commercial uses in various densities. Staff is of the opinion that these conditions support grounds for approval of the proposed gas station and convenience store. Also, a comment was made about DOT recommending against gas station use. All my years, I'm not familiar with DOT stepping up as a recommending authority on land use issues. And it may have happened, but I'm not familiar with it. When Ms. Joseph was speaking and she was talking about transitioning issues, their property literally is contiguous and next door to CVS. There's much more transitioning that's going on here with regard to her residential use than what exists right now with the CVS that's directly next door. CVS directly next door also, to a very certain degree, fills the same needs as far as a convenience store is concerned. They also sell beer. They also sell wine. As far as any outdoor PA system is concerned, there will be none. If there's any concern or worry about that, ought to be conditioned because it's not going to happen. There'll be no sales of things akin to pornography. Again, if there's any issue over that, strongly encourage a condition to prohibit that. The parking does comply with the standards. As a matter of fact, it's sort of interesting because the City of Milton is a jurisdiction that does not give you credit for parking spaces where the folks have been teed up and they've filled their cars up with gas and then they've popped into the convenience store. Those are not counted in the parking ratio, although in the real world we know that a lot of us from time to time will make that movement and leave the car sitting there while we go into the convenience store. And because of the worry and concern about how constrained the 3 parking spaces are at the northern tip of the property, those have been allocated to to employee use. And as already has been indicated, the applicant has said that from time to time we'll have 2 to 3 employees on the property. And as far as traffic is concerned, we earlier had discussed this last time it was in front of you, that really for a use, permitted primary use under the C1 classification, this use probably is as light as it's going to get because it captures a lot of passerby traffic. There is not as much destination-oriented traffic as if you were to have a restaurant on the property or if you were to have a bank on the property. So with that, we maintain that the traffic ramification is, if anything, a bit lighter than what otherwise would be primary permitted uses under the C1 classification. Given that, again, we're here to respond to any questions that we might have of you. I think the applicant, it's a very unusual situation. The applicant is on this property for some 7 or 8 year period of time. I don't know many pocketbooks, very honestly, that could withstand all that he has gone through, all that he has committed to do in order to deliver a product to this community that is refined, has got architectural integrity and interest to it, has greatly softened from a overloading financial scheme of things what has been put into the property as far as the scope of the use is concerned, and we would respectfully request that you approve the application in keeping with what your staff has recommended to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the opposition? Anyone else want to speak in opposition? You have 4 minutes and 41 seconds left.
Does the square footage of this facility include the inspection emissions station that's going to be adjacent to this? Is that included in that?
I think the emissions station's been eliminated.
That has been eliminated. Okay, thank you.
Come forward. If you haven't filled out a comment card, please do so. You need to turn in a comment card.
Oh, there's some
Right here on the corner.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Diane Palmer, and I live at 3300 Bethany Bend. And the reason I wanted to speak is there was one thing that was brought up in Mrs. Jones' comments that were read in the record that I didn't hear addressed. And that's the hours of operation. And the reason I bring that up, I live kind of in the central part of Bethany Bend, so I'm not as close to this proposed development as others.
What is your address, by the way?
3300.
Bethany Bend?
I'm actually on kind of the last little tiny horse property right there on Bethany Bend. I'm not in a subdivision. And I am very personally committed to our rural character that we're trying to hold on to kind of the small town flavor. I'm just very committed. I want to live the rest of my life in Milton and on the same address. I understand that we're not a rural area, we're growing, but I'm very concerned about the hours of operation because I think that brings longer hours of commercial development to our area than we currently have. And so traffic flowing down Bethany Bend would probably be at later hours than it otherwise would, at earlier hours than it otherwise would. So I would just ask you to possibly make some recommendations as to limiting hours of operations. Thank you very much.
Do you want to speak?
Many areas, my name is Mike Amjadi. I am living in 720 Springbrook Court in Milton, Georgia. Many of the modifications that the developer has done are minor and or marginal changes that really originally is not the concern of residents. By the way, I should let you guys know we are not representing everybody because these people were informed at 5 o'clock yesterday. Of course, in the next meeting, it will be much more people. I mean, the essence of having a gas station there, I mean, in a residential area is the main concern of people. Now, I don't think anybody in that community care about there are 5 pump stations or 4 of them or 3 of them. the nature of the business and all the small things that come with it. It impacts the quality of our life. And it is why it simply is not a good idea to have a gas station in a residential area. Thank you.
Any other comments from those that are in opposition to this application? 2 minutes left.
He made a comment about the CVS that's across the street and the way the lights would shine into her property. That CVS has a solid wooden fence back there, probably for that reason. So when cars come out of the CVS and are pointed toward her house, the lights are blocked by that 6-foot-tall fence there. This is not going to be the case with the service station. When anybody comes out of there, the lights are going to shine right into her home.
Anyone else? I don't know what that means.
Well, it's just, we're gonna leave it go.
It's done.
Mr. Hendricks has like 2 seconds left.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Plus the 3 that he had from before.
Okay. If there is no more comment from either the applicant or the opposition, we'll close comment and open it up to planning commission. Any questions of the applicant or staff? Yeah, we probably should. We have a motion for closing public comment. So moved. Thank you. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Now, any questions for staff or the applicant or the opposition?
I have a question for staff. The arborist comments, page 20 of 30 here. Number 3, provide additional screening above and beyond the landscape strip requirements. Is there any more detail that he provided you when he was out walking there? Or?
And that would be addressed at the time if the application is approved at land disturbance permit. It would just be increasing the amount of vegetation planted at I believe it was the landscape strip.
Right, okay.
Yes. And I can just make a note that with a gas station with pumps, there's additional screening required of the landscape strip. So it's not just your normal that's like in front of Target or whatever, so.
Got a question for the applicant. In Ms. Sandy Jones's letter that was read into the record, and I hadn't seen it until tonight, was a little bit surprised by the exception condition put on the CVS development that excluded service stations. And I guess we've looked into that a little bit. Let's assume to full satisfaction, and that included the definition of a gas station. Were you aware of that? That was put in 2006 by Fulton County prior to the formation of Milton, the city of Milton. So my question, I have 2, were you aware of that? And if so, what did you make of the intention of that condition by Fulton County?
I can tell you from dealing with Fulton County from 1982 straight up, is Fulton County has a standard push-the-button C1 set of prohibitions that come out when you're in there unless you ask for something different. And those standard are amusements, fast food restaurants, and gas pumps. Those are the 3 that just you push the button C1 and they're coming out without particular regard or view to a particular piece of property. So if you wanted to do a fast food restaurant, if you wanted to do a drive-through associated with it, you had to ask for that. Otherwise, you'd have that prohibition under your condition 1A.
So Did you represent the CVS group
I did
in
not.
front of Fulton County?
I did not.
So you're saying, and I haven't attended nearly as many as you have, but I've attended
More than you wanted to.
more than I wanted to, and you're suggesting that's a stock default set
Yes.
of conditions.
Yes, it is.
Did you pay any attention to that? I mean, you just think that it wouldn't? Actually, that's too rhetorical. Did you think that it would have no effect or impact on the property across the street, your property?
I was not aware of it. I did not know.
Again, I want to reiterate that that prohibition, those three highlights, come out without regard to a particular piece of property, one way or the other. You hit C1, and unless you ask otherwise, you're going to have those prohibitions under Condition 1A use.
You're a lot more knowledgeable on this than I am, and I'm certainly no attorney, but gosh, I don't remember that those conditions were placed on every single similar zoning, and you know, I guess I'd like to follow up with staff. If y'all say that's right, then that's right, and I'm not really going anywhere with this. I just wanted to understand what your take was.
It was fairly typical, just what Mr. Hendricks stated was that there was probably in the past 10 years from the time that we became a city, it was very typical to have exclusions. It might have been even sooner than that or further back in time than that, but at least for the last 10 years prior to '06, that it was typical to put in those types of exclusions. And that the applicant would need to ask or request for those types of uses. As I stated in the briefing meeting, the applicant had asked for fast food restaurants with drive-throughs, and that was specifically discussed in the staff report. And again, gas stations was not discussed at all. So I would summarize or state that yes, that's very typical to have various exclusions, that would be pretty typical on most commercial zonings. Based on my research and looking through old cases, I mean, obviously I wasn't there during the last 10 years. I was there before that, but not the last 10 years. So, you know, just doing research through cases, it is very typical to have those exclusions in 1A.
But we don't know if they were default exclusions or if they were at the request of whoever owned the adjoining property at the time, or
I mean, that's something we can research. As I stated before, I was trying to get a hold of the minutes to see if there was any discussion during the Board of Commissioners meeting. That wasn't available at this point in time. Typically, they're in the case, but because that was one of the last cases adjudicated by Fulton County, it was the staff or the paperwork did not include the minutes. So I don't understand why the clerk's website's not working right now. So that's something we can do some further research, as well as looking into the original letter, the letter of intent, as well as into what we call the pre-application review, to see if they specifically requested the use of a gas station.
just to close the loop on this, and this will be the end of it for me, I just think we have some responsibility, since they didn't exclude those, maybe by default, but maybe specifically, but they didn't exclude them for traffic or density reasons. They just excluded them. And if that was done for a neighboring property issue, seems to me we ought to understand that, because it at least subjectively affect the property across the street, in my mind anyway.
Well,
If we can't understand it, we can't understand it, but
I think in any case, to the extent you can, we ought to understand how that came down before this gets in front of council, so they have the benefit of that knowledge.
Yes.
You think about how we've administered our ordinances and how we have written them. If you think about these kinds of inclusions in particular, or if it's an exclusion that has been included in the writing of the ordinance, we put those kinds of things in because we were concerned about things that were typically found offensive.
Right.
And as such, they were written in as an exclusion to provide some protection. So I would offer that for consideration, and this is that those were there as an exclusion on purpose that we need to make measure of as we're considering this case.
Although I think, Paul, if I think about what Curtis said, I think, you know, if we think about Birmingham as an example, I mean, we put in place a number of exclusions there, but they were more because the use itself was something we didn't want as a use. It was the use itself that was offensive,
Right.
not the use that had an adverse impact per se, right?
Mhm.
So I think understanding that difference is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the
Yeah,
applicant? Paul?
I do have some questions, and they are for the applicant. I was unfortunately not able to attend the last time this was heard, so but in preparation, I did have a chance to review the original site plan and a number of amended site plans, and now the ones proposed before us. And the one thing in particular I found significantly different is the decision to change on the Bethany Road access to the site. The original proposed drawing from January precluded a left-hand turn upon exit. It was a right-hand turn only on exit. And the new one provides both left and right-hand turn. Can you help me understand why there was a change in that and how that would, I'm concerned about the impact on traffic when you're offering a chance to turn left across oncoming traffic to get to the light.
My name is Abdul. I'm with A&R Engineering. I'm a traffic engineer. I'll try to answer your question. Did a traffic study for this project, and one of the things obviously I evaluated was this access on Bethany Road, and the number of trips that this project will either attract as a bypass trip or a new trip coming to this destination. Given the number of trips that we will have, upon review of the different directions they'll come from, how they will enter the site and exit the site, it was actually my recommendation that they allow left turns into and out of this driveway and restrict, I guess, the left turns into the site from State Route 9. That's a bigger road, and we've got some other issues that we've talked to Georgia DOT, and they were also of the similar opinion. So I discussed the issue based on the traffic numbers and the analysis of this driveway and the left turn movements in conjunction with other driveways, and I concluded based on the detailed evaluation of the study and the queuing analysis that a full access driveway here that permitted left turn movements would actually not have any significant negative impact, as opposed to trying to restrict that without a median in the middle of the road. People will start doing illegal maneuvers and try to enter here because if they're coming from Bethany and they see a gas station, they want to go in there. If that left turn is not allowed, they'll have to turn left on State Route 9, and even then they cannot enter. So legally allowing them when there is no negative impact was the right thing to do, and discussed that with Sarah Leaders, city traffic engineer. She agreed with my analysis and recommendation, so she concurred with it as well.
If, as a...
I didn't understand some of what he said. I don't want to hijack the conversation, but just to kind of try to keep up. I apologize. You were talking about the left turn coming from Bethany Bend, and I just couldn't follow you with your considerations there.
Sure. The left turn movement coming into the site from Bethany Bend, and the left turn out, coming out of the site and turning left on Bethany. Those were the two left turn movements that you asked me the question about, and I said I recommended that those two particular movements will not have any negative impact per se on the operations of Bethany Road in this area.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
To add to that, were there any traffic counts made there on that left-hand turn, say at 8 o'clock, excuse me, 8 o'clock in the morning,
Yes, sir.
Which left, Fred?
off of Bethany Road on the Highway 9,
South on 9.
going south?
Yes, sir. We did perform traffic counts from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. We counted every car that turned every different direction. And also, we did the same thing in the afternoon hours from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m.
So
And that's part of the analysis.
in the original right-hand only exit in the original right-hand entrance in my mind, produces a safer interaction right there than providing all the alternatives in a traditional entrance and exit. So at one point in the consideration that you had provided, you concluded that it was not a restriction of the potential business opportunity by limiting the traffic entrance and exit. So would the applicant consider going back to what I think is a less likely entrance and exit I think it's a safer entrance and exit to restrict it. Would the applicant consider going down to what it was originally instead of all the options? I think that you've got a bike lane there. We've got a potential for additional traffic because of the student population that's going to be coming in the not very distant future. You've got the growth of Milton to consider in an already difficult situation to maneuver. You originally proposed entrance and exit that was more restrictive, and now you've offered something that is less restrictive. I'm interested whether you would consider going back to something more restrictive.
Yes, while the applicant's talking about it, let me just, if you would allow me to answer this question from my experiences with Georgia DOT. We face this question all the time. And Georgia DOT, whenever they are faced with the situation where they want to restrict turning movements at driveways to right in, right out, they have a serious concern about implementation of it. Unless it's a median divided highway, there is no way to physically stop people from trying to make either left-hand turn in or left-hand turn out. And the reality is people end up doing it if you cannot have a median divided highway.
You can stop your argument there for me. I don't
Thank
subscribe to that. I think that's you're offering an opportunity for somebody to break the law. If it's there, they need to abide by the law. And if they're choosing not to, they need to be cited for not following the law.
Can I add just one little note?
Yeah, my question hasn't been answered yet. So
Yes. The reason that we did that before, we didn't have the traffic study done, and we felt like that's the safest way to go. After we hire a traffic engineer to come in and they do the study and do all the car counting, then it was their recommendation that would be the safer way to do it. That was the reason.
okay, but
Oh, I'm sorry. Mary Janet Carr, 4180 Harris Trail.
So my question still stands. Would you be willing to reduce or to change back to the original proposal from what is now before us to the more restricted turn lanes?
I would like to add to that a consideration that was also important in evaluating whether or not that could safely be done.
Is it yes or no?
No.
Okay.
Because if you are right in only and right out only, you're going to be taking the tanker truck traffic that's coming in and directioning it down Bethany Bend Road in much more immediate proximity to residential than through the accommodation of the left-hand turn out to get you on up to the intersection and get you up to the light so that then you can make the left on Highway 9. That came into play.
That's my next set of questions, actually, is how they intend to accommodate the tanker.
Okay, and let me, if I could, get Brad to come up. I don't know whether it was part of your handout or not, but he's got the turning movement analysis.
How many of us are there?
Somebody has to shout.
Yeah, we
Right
saw
now.
this last time. This is no different.
Brad Riffle with AEC, 50 Warm Spring Circle. I can partially answer some of the question in terms of the original site plan having the right-in, right-out. That was initially a request by the Public Works Director that we do have the right-in, right-out on Bethany Bend, and so that's why we showed it that way. And then, of course, after hiring the A&R, they discussed the issue with the tanker truck, and then the allowance of being able to turn left in and left out on that. So that's why that got changed. What you're seeing there, the yellow line indicates the center of the cab, which is the front access and the cab. The pink lines are indicated by the front and back tires. Of course, they travel at a different path than the front tires. And you can see how it maneuvers in, coming in from northbound on Highway 9 into the right-in, right-out, and then exits left on the Bethany Bend towards Highway 9 intersection.
So, and you presented to us one potential tanker path to this. Could the tanker not go all the way to the intersection of 9 and Bethany, turn right, and then comply with the original drawings where it would turn right into the property and flow through and flow right out again back onto Highway 9? That
Well-
way, there'd be no change required to the original presentation,
Typically, the tanker is going to be coming from the southbound on Highway 9.
right?
So that's what we were trying to accommodate, is his origination coming from the south, heading north, coming in, and then able to turn back south at the intersection of Bethany Bend and Highway 9. And we're alleviating them traveling down Bethany Bend towards residential traffic, or residential.
But really, are you understanding my question?
Mhm.
Where if he were to still continue coming from the south to the north on Highway 9,
Mhm.
if he were to proceed all the way to the intersection and turn right, as would be the natural flow of traffic, you could then enter off of Bethany, accommodating the original proposed right turn.
No, they would have a difficult time making that hairpin turn because they're one lane closer to the gas station. So the turn coming in from Bethany Bend into the site is virtually impossible because it's a hairpin turn that's quite honestly tighter than what an actual truck can handle.
So in other words, the site really doesn't accommodate a gas station very well.
Well, it's tight, but it handles it coming from the south.
Okay, thank you.
Did you say that the pink represents the back?
Yes.
I was thinking like going right here, got cars.
Yeah, it's tough.
Well, and as a practical matter, if you put that island back in there where it was shown before, even with the turn lane,
You'd be driving over.
You'd be driving right over it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to understand how it's gonna, how they can make the turn. I mean, that's a tight turn anyway.
Right.
I just cannot.
It's tight. Well, in fact,
Especially with it now showing where the back tires.
the truck, the auto turn that we use, the program that we use, doesn't have a gas tanker truck. Those are a little bit shorter than this truck right here.
Right.
So the truck you see there is probably, 5 to 8 feet longer than what a tanker truck. So we've had the Shell gas people look at it, and they've reviewed it, and they said it doesn't look like a problem to us. There's typically going to be 1 or 2 drivers that are going to be making this. They're going to know the site. They're going to know how to come in, how to come out, and so they'll have lots of familiarity with it.
And again, they deliver typically in the mornings, correct?
Morning,
Can you,
early morning, or afternoons.
does this truck I'm sorry, were you through, Paul? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I'm not quite, but
Could I ask a question just about this?
yeah, absolutely.
If this guy's coming from the south, does he empty his truck here and then head back to wherever his point of origin is?
Correct.
So if he's heading north now on Bethany Road towards the intersection, how does he make that turn at the intersection? Is there enough turning radius for him to make that turn going south on Highway 9?
I sure hope so. I mean, that's the GDOT and Milton transportation. I can only imagine that it accommodates it. It should.
I have another section of questions.
Any more questions on the
Tankers?
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned delivery. How many deliveries, and I believe we covered that before, but I didn't have it the last meeting. How many deliveries do you plan to make during the week?
Either 2 or 3. It depends of what our volume would be, the sales volume.
And do you plan to do those during operating hours?
The scheduling, it would be up to us. Whenever we are ready, we can have it early in the morning, we can have it off peak hours, or we can have it later at night.
So if you're operating from 5:30 until midnight with a busy gas station with a tanker, seems to me the only time to deliver would be when you're closed.
If that's what we have to, we can manage that too. Because as the Shell representative was here last time, as he said, they're going to assign 2 delivery truck driver to us, to that site, and they are the only 2 that they can come to our site. And they usually work with our schedule of when we want them to come in and when we don't want them to come in.
How big is your tank?
How big it is?
Yeah.
It's going to be 1 tank, which is 20,000 gallon.
And the one tank accommodates all the different grades of fuel?
Correct. They have a divider.
And I'd like the traffic engineer to respond, because y'all thought it was an important question, and I think it is, how that movement of that truck going north on Bethany Bend takes the left onto Highway 9. Thanks.
Yeah, it's really a function of the turning radius, and the left turn radius at the intersection of Bethany Bend, if you're turning left from Bethany onto State Route 9 going south, I've looked at that intersection very closely in designing some concept designs, will be adequate for actually any big truck to turn left, including the truck that we will have at the service stations. I'm positive that it'll have the radius.
Just to make sure I got, maybe my math's wrong, but just to put it in perspective, that's somewhere around 600 cars a day.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'd like to sort of change topics and go to hours of operations. So if it's a 5:30 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Saturday, and 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., and the likely deliveries are going to be outside of normal hours of operation because of the traffic, so that really means it's going to be before 5:30 a.m. or after midnight. Is that a correct assumption?
Not necessarily, because even though that we open till 12, but usually our rush hour finish it anywhere between 7 to 8 o'clock. After 8 o'clock, our rush hour is gone, and that's when we can assign the delivery truck to come in.
So, recognizing that the hours of operation are significantly broader than all of the other, or many of the other businesses established in the area already, would you consider a condition? Would you be willing to accept a condition that would limit the hours for delivery to within the hours of operation, so that we're not extending it to? You think about the community at large that is already being asked to accommodate, more standard business hours. of 7 a.m. to, the only other one that's open late is 10:30 p.m. I'm not asking you to restrict your current hours of intended operation. I'm just asking if you would consider restricting your hours of deliveries to something that's, let's say it's off-peak hours, but it's maybe afternoon or early evening.
Yes, we can do that.
I think I'm finished, George, for the moment. Actually, I have one more question. Actually, two more. You have confirmed that there would be no standard external announcements. There's no reason for public address to take place at any time?
Yes.
And you'd be willing to accept a condition that would prohibit that?
Correct.
Okay. One of the things that was noted by staff, and this is my last question at the moment, that was noted by staff was a requirement of a request of a bike rack to be included if we're going to be a bike-friendly community. Is that, I don't see that anywhere included in the current plan. Is that just an oversight, or is there a site proposed for the bike rack?
It's probably oversight, but we can agree to provide that. It was our intention to provide it.
Thank you.
Just back to Chairman Moore's question, if the tanker truck now is best, the tanker truck is there, I see no possible way to be able to get cars into the front of the station if the tanker is sitting out there unloading gas.
Right now, I have a gas station, operating gas station in Marietta at the intersection of Dallas Highway and Barrett Parkway. I have built that one back in 1996. And the design is exactly like that. The underground storage tank, which we have two of them, it's right in front of the store where the parkings are. And when we have the delivery truck to come in, it's usually off-peak. And as Mr. Hendricks mentioned it, most of the time when you go buy gas, you park your car, get gas, and then walk inside. And that's off-peak hours. We usually have very few people that they come in and they park their car in front, or they want to park their car in front of the store to go in. If they see the delivery truck, they usually go park their car under the canopy next to the pump, and then they walk inside. Usually the delivery period, it's anywhere between 20 minutes to 30 minutes, which, again, if you do it at off-peak hours, we have never had any problem over there.
Thank you.
That's all. I have a couple of questions. With respect to the tank, obviously the location has moved from what was shown on the prior drawing. Well, first let me talk about the way that the top of the tank is designed. Is the top of the tank flush with grade? Are any of the caps that are on the top of the tank going to be raised, or is it flush with grade?
They are raised.
Sorry?
They are raised.
They are raised.
Yeah, the top is raised, but it's not a significant raise. I believe it's a code issue that it has to be visible and it's a different color, so that when they come in, they know which department they need to drop which product, so that they don't mix diesel with the regular gas.
Just off the top, do you know how much they're raised?
Oh, it's not that much. I would say probably maybe 3 to 4 inches.
So cars will be driving over those, and people will be walking and across those all the time?
Yes.
Okay. The second question is with respect to venting of that tank. The prior location of the tank allowed the tank to be vented vertically, and the current location, if we read the drawing right, it looks like the vents are being carried over to the landscape strip.
That's correct.
And there's no code issue there with those vents not being vertical? Running them laterally like that is okay?
Yeah, they can run a short distance and then turn up vertically.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is if it looks like maybe it's 100 or 50 feet, is that a short distance?
No, it's probably more like 30. I think that's acceptable.
22.6, 22 feet wide of that section right there anyway.
Yeah, okay. I guess the raised covers right there in the primary access area, I guess to me is a safety issue.
If I can answer that question, this is exactly the same thing, same design that we have in the other gas station. And as I said, we've been operating since 1996. People walk over it, drive over it freely, and we have never had any problem, any code violation. As you may know, the gas station, they usually get checked periodically by fire marshal, and we never had any issue.
I'm more concerned with it being a trip hazard than anything else, to be honest with you. With people walking across there, I mean, it's right in front of the store. Anybody who goes in the store is going to, that doesn't park there, is going to be walking right across those covers all the time.
Right. Let me. I'm sorry to interrupt you. The covers they have lock. Nobody can get into actually the tank except
I understand.
the.
I'm talking about the raised right in the middle of the access way.
Right. It won't be if you're worried about people tripping over it. It's not going to be as a gradual raise. It's not 4-inch raise like you see on your sidewalk. It's a gradual.
Understand.
Are you familiar with the BP station at the intersection of Highway 9 and Windward?
Am I familiar with that?
Are you familiar with that station?
I have seen it, but I haven't paid attention of where their underground storage tank is.
If the caps that you're describing are similar to the tank caps that are there. They're multicolored and they're raised, probably 3 or 4 inches. And if it's anything like that, and the concern that I've got about those is I'm thinking about an elderly person who may have chosen to take advantage of the services being offered by this site, and they've chosen to park there in a pretty tight area. And if they would expect their vehicle to just roll in a normal fashion when they've taken the car and put it into reverse, and for whatever reason, in this case, its tires are up against a raised cap, and they were to choose to use the accelerator, I'm concerned about public safety. Can you speak to that?
Hold on one second.
As you probably have seen, the caps are tapered. So they have like a slight bevel to them, so there wouldn't be an abrupt stop. They would be able to roll up on it.
Okay, yeah, then they are similar to the ones I.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a industry standard. Yes.
The state fire marshal's got to approve the location of the tank, as I understand it. If for any reason that is not approved, is there an alternative location, or is that the only location with the new site plan that can be?
According to the state fire marshal, the only requirement for tanks away from any structures is the loading zone of the structure. They really, other than that, it's wherever it needs to be in terms of to accommodate the trucks. When the trucks pull in, they will jettison the fuel on the passenger side, which is why we have it located in that location.
Say what you said about the loading zone of the structure.
The only limitations from the State Fire Marshal's Department on the location of the underground tanks is that the tanks cannot be under the load of a structure.
Okay, sorry.
And typically, he says 10 feet is the closest you want to get, and we're about 30.
We didn't really ask about it, I guess, but how do supplies that are put into the convenience store get loaded, and where do they get loaded?
They're coming through the front door. They're usually a small truck that they're coming on off-peak hours, and they bring in their product through the front door.
Where does that truck park when it comes?
Right in front. Some of them, they park in front. Some of them, they park alongside of Bethany Road.
And I'm sorry if I missed it. They come during standard business hours as well?
Off-peak hours, yes, but during the standard business hours.
One last question. With respect to the surround for the dumpster, in looking at the elevations, the front elevation makes it appear that it's almost flush, but it looks like, in fact, it's recessed. Is that correct?
I believe it's recessed. It goes back.
I don't have any other questions. Anyone else? Curtis?
I've got one more question for the traffic engineer. For traffic coming toward Highway 9 on Bethany Bend that may or may not want to take a left into the service station, but plans to take a left, let's say either at the service station or on Highway 9, I don't understand what you take into account when you do your studies. It's got to be more than pure volume, and I know just anecdotally, I took my kids to school through this intersection a couple of days a week for a few years, and I know it pretty well in the, let's say, 7:30 in the morning window. And my experience was that with a left turn lane and the lane that goes straight across Highway 9, that it can bottleneck to the east. I'm not sure if that's east or south, but below the point where the left turn lane splits off, I'm not exactly sure where that is relative to this entrance, and that would be sort of one question. And then, did you take any impact there into account on the traffic flow that's trying to go south on Highway 9 from Bethany Bend?
Yes, sir, we did. The traffic study itself is pretty detailed. We studied the intersection of State Route 9 and Bethany Road and the driveways to the two proposed driveways to the site, and the interaction of the through traffic on Bethany Road and those who are turning left from Bethany onto State Route 9, how the traffic signal operates, how the queuing builds up as you have red light before it turns green, and how it discharges, and the opportunities for traffic from the side driveway to exit, which is really a function of not only number of cars going in either direction on Bethany Road, but also the number of gaps between cars. There are multiple factors. It's so complicated that I cannot do all those calculations by hand. We have computer software. We put all these parameters and literally create a computer model. It's pretty much an industry standard which requires us to do it that way. And so you will see in the appendix to this report a lot of computer printouts. What we do is document the number of cars, enter the number of lanes in each direction, and enter the signal timing, how the signal is working. And then we get the level of service and delay and queues as the output from the software.
And all of that's time phased by...
Right. So it's been done, and then we add the traffic from the site and then reevaluate it to see how things operate. One of the things I think it's worth mentioning, I recommended in this study, is to improve the signal timing at the intersection of State Route 9 and Bethany Road. Right now, the thing that really stood out for me was the way the traffic signal is timed is not the most efficient. And one of the things I recommended is to retime the signal in the most optimized manner it can be, which will substantially help improve the flow of traffic through this intersection.
On that point, is the timing of that signal controlled by the city or the state? Since it's a state highway.
It's a state traffic signal, but after the formation of the city, my understanding is city's got some control. I know when I worked on another project in city of Milton, we installed a new traffic light at the Super Target and on Webb Road on State Route 9. An IS consultant came out and did the timing for those two intersections for them to work in a synchronized manner. So city has control because city asked us to do it on their behalf over there.
May I follow up? Yeah, to that point, my experience was that the cars in the left lane that wanted to go south on 9 or intended to go south on 9 did not clear per cycle. And sometimes it would be as many as 3 cycles, which is why that bottlenecked. If someone coming toward 9 wanted to do anything, go across, or they were stuck behind the cars that were in the left turn southern turn lane. So that would be an issue in my mind. I don't think you avoided this on purpose, but maybe I covered too much ground. 2 more questions. Where is the beginning of the left turn lane relative to the left entrance, relative to the entrance here off of Bethany Bend?
The left turn lane.
No, I'm pointing to this, and that entrance. Where is I can't tell here where is it further toward 9, or does it happen to coincide with that entrance?
It's much further towards 9. The left turn lane does not come.
Okay.
As far as the driveway is.
How many? If I don't know what you consider to be the peak hour. I'd be curious, but I'm not sure it matters. But whatever the peak hour is, and it may vary by which quadrant of the intersection we're talking about. But what volume, incremental volume assumptions did you make about traffic, destination-oriented traffic?
Answer is going to be very detailed. I don't know how detailed you want me to get.
Give me the UGA answer.
I'm sorry. I graduated from Georgia Tech. Well, let me try to give you a short answer for that. In the traffic study, I have a lot of graphics that help understand numbers, and one of the graphic there will help me answer your question. Let me try to find that.
I mean, if you could just say peak hour is X, and we assume somewhere between 4 and 9 incremental vehicles during that time, or just in kind of common language.
Absolutely.
That would be helpful.
We identified 2 peak hours, AM and PM. In the morning, we counted cars from 7 to 9, and within that 2-hour window, whatever was the real 1-hour highest number, we took that. It could be from 7:30 to 8:30, could be from 7:45 to 8:45. I'm not sure exactly which hour, but we picked that 1 hour, and that's our peak hour. During that 1 hour period in the AM, for example, looking at the driveway on Bethany Road, we projected in the morning 10 cars to exit the drive. 8 of them we projected would turn left and 2 would turn right going towards the residential area. In the PM peak hour, which again is somewhere between 4 and 6, for 1 hour window somewhere from 4:30 to 5:30 or 5 to 6, we projected a total of 15 vehicles to exit the driveway on Bethany Road. And again, 12 of those we projected would turn left to reach, to access the signal.
Exit from the
driveway coming out of the site.
Yeah, no, I'm interested in going in. I'm interested in incremental destination-oriented traffic.
Yeah, these are the numbers. Entering numbers are about the same. We projected 10 vehicles to turn right.
No, I'm sorry. And remember, I'm a Georgia grad.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I know you went to Tech. I'm talking about new car. I mean, a car that goes in and leaves doesn't mean that it's not just driving by. So I'm talking about incremental traffic that is going to that station on purpose that otherwise would not have been on Bethany Bend or maybe 9. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'm not trying to beat it to death.
No,
Just
no.
having been through that intersection and seeing how quickly it can gridlock, I'm just curious if, during whatever the peak hour is, if there were any new vehicles
These are
anticipated or modeled going to that point.
the numbers I just quoted to you, sir, are my projected incremental increase.
Incremental? Okay. All right.
Yes.
Thanks.
Mhm.
I didn't get that. I thought that was just the activity level at that window. Thanks.
So what is the activity level? If those are incremental? Because I'm having trouble if those are activity levels, it doesn't match the gas consumption of 2 to 3 deliveries a week. I mean, 2 to 3 deliveries a week comes out to be on average about 600 cars a day. And if peak periods are what you said, 10 and 15, that doesn't come to 600 cars a day.
Well, keep in mind there are 2 driveways. The numbers I was giving you was just at one of the 2 driveways. So first you double it, and then
Even if you add them together, that's only 25 cars. And over the operating, what's the operating period, about 18 hours, 16 hours, something like that?
I think you have a good point, and let me explain. The numbers he asked me was the incremental numbers, what I call new trips, not the trips that are already on the road, people who live down the road who want to go here. That was just the incremental. But the actual numbers on another graphic, to answer your question, are higher. Those numbers are coming out of the driveway on Bethany Road in the AM peak hour, about 30 cars total. And similarly, entering 27, I projected. So it's almost twice. Gas stations typically have 50 to 60% pass-by rate.
And what about Highway 9?
Highway 9. We projected about 20 cars, 22 cars, 25 cars turning right in an hour.
So you're projecting more on Bethany than on Highway 9?
Well, I was quoting you the exiting number. If you really look at the access, the only people who can enter at Highway 9 are the people who are going north on Highway 9. But when you exit, there are 4 possible directions you can go. And in order to go 3 of those 4 directions, you have to exit on Bethany Road. That's why I have more cars exiting on
There's
Bethany.
only 3 possible directions you can go.
Highway State Route 9 North, State Route 9 South, Bethany East, or Bethany West.
You can't go State Road 9 South.
No, well, that's why he's saying that most of the exit is out on the Bethany side.
Oh, I misunderstood.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying there were only 4 physical locations. Okay, understand.
Good questions. I mean, I'll be happy to answer.
In the study, with the numbers that are both modeled and the actual counts, you've created a business conclusion that it's viable, it's viable based on the current numbers. How far out does the projection go? Is it based on current traffic that you say that in the next 12 months this is a viable business there because of the current projections for the next 12 months?
City of Milton ordinance requires any traffic study to model 3 different scenarios. One is the existing condition, and second is the build-out year of the project, which is about a year out if approved. It can be done with the construction, which I have done. And the ordinance also requires us to model 5 years past the project opening date, which is if they open the project in 2011, which is 2016. So I've modeled all those years as required by the ordinance.
Okay, and so in that modeling, then, it does contemplate the creation of the high school. That would add a significant amount of traffic there within the peak hours?
Yes, sir.
And okay, well, I guess I'm satisfied with that.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
Someone from the audience is trying to ask one.
Public comment is closed. If you have a question, we can consider it.
When this traffic analysis has been done, which dates?
Can you come up to the mic so we can hear you, please?
I can hear. It's Mike Amjadi. I have a question about the period of the time or the days which this analysis has been done. When was it? Which interval of dates it was?
The traffic counts, when were they done? I think there was some confusion. I think some of the community people saw some count boxes out during spring break, but those I don't think were yours or the city's, so that might be part of the question.
Thank you. Would you like for me to answer that question, sir? Sure. No, we were done with our study way before spring break. We've been revising the study ever since as the site plan evolved. So the study was done much before spring break. We, as a rule, and again, this is guidance from most cities, counties, DOTs, are required to collect traffic count data on a normal weekday, and we are asked to avoid any time periods close to weekends, so we avoid Mondays and Fridays. We only do our counts on typical weekdays we call Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So this data was collected on a typical Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I don't know the exact date. I can go back and check the records, but that's when we have done it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Would entertain a motion. We need to do something with this.
One question here, just have a little time. I thought last time we were here, the tanker was not going to be able to turn south off Bethany on Highway 9 going south. I thought the only way that it could go was north on Highway 9.
That is the plan they presented last time. The plan they're presenting tonight, which I assume copies are out there, right? Does have movements in both directions.
So the tanker will now go Bethany left onto Highway 9 going south?
That's what they're proposing, yes.
I drive an SUV and I just barely can make that turn.
That was my point.
I don't know how a tanker can ever do that unless they're in the right-hand lane and then they turn left going south on Highway 9 in front of the existing turning lane. It's impossible. I don't think it can be done from that turn lane.
Thank you. Okay. If there are no other questions, we need a motion from someone.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we deny petition RZ 10-01.
A second.
Okay, any discussion? Motion's been made and seconded.
I would just point, the reason for my motion is what we've been hearing is lots of solutions to lots of problems, and it's just the problems that I still find overwhelming. I just think that it's a more intense use than this property is really able to accommodate when you take into consideration all the community factors that are here present today and that we're facing in the future with the high school coming. I just think that compounding what is already a difficult traffic intersection is not in the best interest of the community.
Any other discussion? I'd like to ask a question just for clarity, Paul. Your motion was for denial. Never mind. My question was not relevant. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. All those in favor of the motion that we deny RZ 10-01 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. So the motion passes 4-2, if I counted correctly. Could we just do a show of hands to make sure all those in favor? Okay, and opposed? Okay. Next item, Robin.
The next item is the proposed amendment to the City of Milton Planning Commission bylaws. This item was before us at the last, at the March meeting. Mr. Ragsdale presented his proposed changes, and tonight we are able to make, or the planning commission can make a action on those proposed changes.
Okay, let me, if I can find the darn thing, let me comment, if I could. First, there was an error that I think we pointed out last time, Robin, which is on page 4, in the fourth paragraph from the bottom, where it should have said the third Monday of each month, and it still says the third
Okay,
Thursday.
we can fix that.
Just a clerical thing. Beyond that, the discussion we had last time, I think, was around, we wanted to try and achieve an objective of having everybody, having the ability to vote, everybody present. A suggestion was made that we could possibly consider proxy votes if those proxies were limited to the issue of selecting the chairman and the vice chairman. I've had a discussion with the city attorney, and under state law, that's not an option that we have. So having a proxy vote, the theory being that having a proxy vote deprives the public of the right to witness the vote with all voting people present and so on. So we have to kind of backstep and decide whether we want to accept it the way it is or make some other adjustment to take care of that. I mean, my goal in proposing this change was just to get some certainty in terms of the timing. I think the discussion from last meeting, the alternative was to go back to say it would be the first meeting when all of the members were present. And so I think, from my perspective, those are the only two alternatives we really have. Either we go ahead with it the way it is and we vote with whoever is there, or we revert to where we were before and say it's the first meeting when all members are present. And I would open it up to the group for comments.
Maybe I can only imagine one scenario where it would be pushed off to a later date. If there was a member of city council or the mayor who were to choose in a transition of personnel on their staff, on their team, but they hadn't chosen somebody, or hadn't appointed somebody yet to be considered a part of our team. Is there a way we can put a time frame on it where they have to have an appointment by, no later than that?
I mean, I don't think there's anything that restricts them for how long it takes them to do that. I don't
That's
think
correct.
there is.
Well, I would suggest we just go, we're all responsible citizens, and it's our intent to be here at every meeting.
I'm okay either way. I mean, I'm not trying to push it one way or the other.
Maybe we just say as soon as we're all present, but with the intention of having it not go beyond the meeting.
So what you're proposing then would be that section 1 would say that the election would take place at the first regularly scheduled planning commission meeting in each calendar year following the proper appointment swearing in of all planning commission members when all said members are present.
I think that works for me.
Okay. That work for everybody?
Yes.
Curtis, you're pondering.
No, I'm not pondering. I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah, either way.
Okay. With that change and the clerical change, I'd like the motion to approve this so we can get it put behind us.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you. The last item, Robin?
The last item is a discussion of the process and procedures for text amendments and other associated documents.
I think I'm the one that asked for this, and I don't know that anybody's even read it at this point. I know.
I have.
Yeah. Sure. Did I skip something?
No, well, it was just something, I was asking Paul, on Article 4, member duties,
Sure.
Section 1. states that commission members must attend 2/3 of the meeting calendar year.
Yep.
Well, if my Purdue math is correct, that's 8.
That's right.
And I thought it was.
I thought it was,
9.
Actually, I thought it was if you missed 2.
Yeah.
It used to be on
I thought
the,
it was
it had to
two.
be, you can only miss 2 and upon the third.
Yeah.
Yeah, consecutive. Wasn't it consecutive?
No.
It was just 2 in
Well,
a
I
year.
didn't change it. That's
No,
what-
no, I just had a question to ask. I just asked Paul while we were sitting there. I said, I thought it was 3 and, 2-year question, 3-year out. But is that always been that way?
We haven't, I mean, maybe from the original might have changed, but I don't think so. I don't think we dealt with
I
the
thought it was
number.
more stringent than that personally.
Yeah, I recall.
So did I.
No,
It was
I think it's been
basically-
that way, so,
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Don't take that as a license to start missing
No,
meetings.
I mean, maybe
no,
we should
it was-
consider, maybe we should,
But-
can we make that amendment tonight to go back to what we have all understood it to be?
I think technically we can't. Technically, we
do
have to
it.
rewrite it, we gotta bring it back to the next meeting, but that's something we could also change. I mean, that's.
Well, and I think, and we've all been pretty diligent. I can't
Yeah.
recall anybody who's,
No, I mean, everybody's missed a couple, but I don't think
yeah,
anybody's been
we're gonna bump
abusing
into that.
it.
But we've all done a great job of scheduling our calendars so we don't have the conflict.
Why don't we take it up at the next meeting? If anybody feels strongly we ought to change it, we can do that. But I think in order to change anything in here, it's got to be presented a meeting ahead of voting on it. So we've either got to present it next time and vote on it the month after that, or if we're going to do something like that, my suggestion would be we change the rule about presenting it and voting in a month.
Yeah.
We're going to be years doing
You could
this.
have missed 3 meetings by the time you voted.
That's right, that's right. Okay.
Does everybody see any value in that? I mean, are we beating a dead horse?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, we haven't had anybody that's abusing it. On the other hand, if we did have somebody that was abusing it, we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. So
Well, if you think back in our history,
we didn't do anything about it.
well, we had, remember at
Sporadic.
one point it was sporadic at
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
And even when he was intended, sometimes it wasn't.
Yes.
Well,
There's nothing in here that says that you have to be
Physically
mentally
present.
present, just physically present.
So,
I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. If you guys want to
I
change
hate,
it.
okay, well, while you're pondering that, there was another note, and I don't know why I got so carried away with all this on these ordinances. But on Article 5, it speaks of meetings. Regular meetings of the commission shall be held on the 4th Thursday of each month.
Yeah.
Do you have to say anything in there about except during holidays or?
Well, we're not meeting the fourth Thursday of any month.
Okay, well, no, I just, but my whole point is Thursday, and also the fact that should we have to say in there, except on holidays, because remember, we bounce it around for
yeah,
Christmas.
and Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer, but I didn't know if you had to say except for holidays or,
It probably could be better worded. You're absolutely right. And at least we could get the day of the month right.
Great.
so I would like to bring that up at the next meeting.
Okay.
As well as, I would like to think that you should attend at least 9 meetings.
Well, I guess I would ask, is the issue 9 meetings, or is it missing more than 2 in a row? I mean,
Oh.
because, I mean,
I-
my concern would be, if you think about kind of the tail end of last year, we went through about 5 meetings in a row where we couldn't approve any minutes because we didn't have the right people here to be able to constitute a quorum for the minutes that were there, right? I don't think anybody violated the number of meetings rule, but there were a couple of occasions where there were a couple in a row that kind of got problematic.
What was the effective rule in 2009?
Well, the written rule or
The effective rule in 2009.
I don't think that we actually practiced anything, to be honest with you.
But something was in the bylaws, right? I mean, I remembered it
That's
from
what this 2/3 was.
2/3 of the meeting. So, I mean, it's possible, even though we weren't paying attention, that someone could have,
It's possible.
and maybe has been ejected from this commission and doesn't know it. I'm dead serious. And their votes on matters could have been technically called into question. And I know on the Parks and Rec Board that it's come up where someone missed the maximum number of meetings, and then it was the procedural issue. I don't know if it's the same for this, but the procedural issue was that the group could vote to override it, but it was subject to the group's decision, not council or the lawyer. Or,
To be honest with you, that's the way this reads, too.
Is that right?
It
Okay,
says
so
it warrants
I haven't
review.
looked at that since the first year. I've always paid attention to it, I remembered it being 2 consecutive meetings, but
That's what I remember, too. but-
yeah, but I don't know if that's right. That's
And
just
I
what-
remembered.
Well,
it
I
only
remember it
missed
was 2
and then-
consecutive meetings and no more than 3 in any given year.
Yeah.
That's how I remember it.
So it's up to the group. If someone can't make the meetings and they exceed whatever maximum we agreed to.
Yeah, it just gives the commission the right to remove them, basically.
Staff does remember a time when the planning commissioner had a family member that was very ill, and that particular commissioner was out for quite some time. He still met the requirement of 2/3.
How's that?
Well, I calculated, I mean, it wasn't like they were consecutive misses necessarily, but I calculated the number of times that particular commissioner was gone, when I thought, oh, well, it seemed like it was fairly
Oh, so you've been
frequent.
paying attention to
I
it?
have, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was trying to
No,
suggest.
I'm just, I do notice when people are, absent regularly
I could have
or
spent
for
another
whatever
night in
reasons,
New Orleans
and,
if I would have known that.
You what? What did you say?
You could
I
have spent
flew-
another
I-
night in New Orleans.
Yeah, I flew home just so I wouldn't have another absence on my record.
I've done that. I've flown out really late and come back,
Yeah.
taking it
son's
seriously.
softball
My
baseball
company
game and
understands that I have an
came
obligation
in
once a month to these meetings, and they allow me to amend my travel and my meeting schedule to accommodate these meetings. It's just understood.
I think we'd be willing to give you a blanket waiver on absences, though, if you.
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, this is probably something we ought to talk more about at a different time, but I mean, I remember missing 2 meetings last year, one of which was not a regularly scheduled meeting. It was a special
right.
call meeting on top
Right.
of something I already
Right.
had planned. I think there needs to be an exception
That's
for
right.
that kind
That-
of
that's-
thing.
that's right.
Because,
Yeah.
I mean, we've all got other lives. If you miss a scheduled meeting, that's one
Yeah.
thing, but if you miss a special call meeting, it just is gonna happen, right?
Sure.
So maybe we ought to talk about this in more detail at another meeting and see if there's other changes we want to make.
All right, well, can we add it to the agenda? for
Sure,
The next
let's-
meeting?
let's do that.
So we have the discussion.
Yeah,
And
let's
try
do
to
that.
craft some.
I mean,
language
to
and-
Curtis's point, I mean, I don't think anything here is going to necessarily change the way we are behaving, but tightening it up for the future is probably a good idea.
Okay.
So we
you
just
did
wanna have
catch
the
those 2
discussion.
Thursdays? Don't
Yes.
know that.
so we'll just have a discussion for the next item.
Okay. I really want to spend some time with this. I think it's a good document. I did get a chance to read through it quickly, but I think it's a document that we all need to read so that we all have an appreciation for the work that Lynn and Robin have done, so that we can, this was kind of at my request to try and kind of outline, because I know we've had a lot of questions and issues about the right process and when are we supposed to hear something and when are we not, and so on. So I would prefer that we defer this to the next meeting when everybody's had a chance to read it and can more intelligently comment on it.
Yeah, because I went to Lynn with, I think, an ordinance on,
New potential ordinance.
Right.
yeah, new potential ordinance.
Well, they're in, and I
that's
don't
in-
want to
No, no.
get into it, but I mean, you and I had that discussion, and
Right.
that was one of the questions I had about this, because to me, the things you're talking about may or may not be zoning ordinances. And as I read this, it's pretty specific with respect to zoning ordinance versus other ordinances, which I think is appropriate.
Okay.
So we gotta make sure we understand what's in and what's out, and I just would propose that we defer that to the next meeting if we can, and put it on the agenda. Do we have anything on the agenda
That's
for
what
the
I was
next
just
meeting?
gonna ask you all for your advice. There are no zoning item agendas, on the next.
the next meeting,
You
so.
have the two cell towers that got rejected aren't gonna come back again or something?
No, they decided on them last night.
What happened?
Yeah.
The first two, the one on Mountain and the one on Hopewell
Hopewell.
were denied outright, and then the one on New Providence was approved, but with a 100-foot limitation for height.
That's interesting.
I wasn't able to, or I didn't, I should say I wasn't able to, I didn't come to the meeting. I'm curious about how they got past the technical issue for denying two and approving one when they all had the same issue.
They conditioned it to submittal of that wind load study from a structural engineer.
They could have conditioned the other two as
They could
well.
have.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Okay.
So our next scheduled meeting is the 22nd of June?
No, May.
May
I'm sorry,
somewhere.
shoot.
Would be May, unless you all choose to
I was
move
just
it,
skipping.
all the
May.
items.
I was just gonna skip May this year.
I'm glad you brought the 22nd up. 'cause I
If we
was
did that,
gone.
though, you'd have to skip a meeting.
Everybody gets a
No,
black
it would
card.
not be a meeting that
Well,
would be held.
that puts me in trouble, because
You're okay.
June 22nd is the next one. I will be in Canada.
It's May 25th.
Yes, I have
What,
it.
is that the day after Memorial Day?
No, Memorial Day's
Memorial
late, it's
Day.
like 31st, or 30th or 31st.
Okay,
It's the following, it's a separate week.
okay. Well, what's the wishes of the group? If we have no zoning items, we can defer, but my sense is that maybe these two things are gonna take up enough time that it's worth doing, and I
We should do
would
it
prefer to
before.
meet and do that.
I'd be all for that.
Okay. I'd also,
Because I don't want to miss one, then have another one.
No, well, I didn't want to have you do that in June when I wouldn't be here.
I'll try and send everybody an email too. What I'd like to be able to do at that meeting, if we could, and it's kind of consistent with the way that Robin and Lynn have structured the process, is, we had a discussion probably a year ago about, kind of hot button issues for each one of us. And I know, at least for me, one of the things that we never really got finished with was the whole landscape business definition and so on. I'd like to try and at least bring to that meeting some ideas for things, and Fred, you've got two, right? Ordinances or amendments or things that we could do proactively kind of going forward. There's going to be things ultimately that are going to flow out of the comprehensive plan that we're going to want to do as well, but I think it'd probably be better to defer that until the plan's done. There are other things that are kind of remediating, I guess, amendments that we've talked about, but we just haven't gotten closure on. And to be honest with you, one of the concerns here is I'm not sure whether that's appropriate under the flow that you've described, because technically, if I look at the flow chart, we're a citizen. We're not the council and we're not staff, so we're a citizen. The way this is written, it means that we can't do that without getting the approval of council.
You can initiate it, send it through, and in fact, what you would be doing is sending it through the city manager, because it does require staff time.
But that's
we
not
would
the way
then-
it's drawn. That's my point.
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry, it does have to go to council. They would have to direct the city manager then to say, yes, this is
But only
something
to
we do,
the
or no,
extent
it's
that
not.
it involves staff time?
Yes,
Okay. I
but
mean,
of
if we-
course, most amendments do.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So I guess we're going to need to talk about getting a little more formal, I guess, with those things that we want to work on proactively, because we're going to have to present them to city council and get their approval. And I assume in order to do that, they're going to want some estimate of staff time that goes along with whatever that is to support that.
Potentially, yes, sir.
Okay. I have nothing else for this evening. Anybody else?
If I may, just interject
Sure.
one thing. We are attempting to try to find the next opportunity for DCA's planning commissioner training. I would highly recommend it, not that you all don't know what you're doing, but simply because it's just very, very enlightening. The best parts are the legal parts. I know some of you lawyers may already keep up with some of the latest in zoning changes, but for the rest of us normal folks, we have to get updates. And it's very informative.
Are you looking for an opportunity for a public presentation that we can attend, or are you looking for something where it can be scheduled for us?
Is this like what we did 3 years ago
No,
or
it-
something?
Well, it wouldn't be where we're bringing the,
No, this was downtown.
We
And
went
Tuller
downtown.
went,
Oh,
and
okay.
I thought you did. It was like an all-day deal, and some of
Yeah,
us.
typically all day. Usually it runs over 2 days. The
I didn't
first day
realize
is
everything.
primarily legal issues, ethics, things of that nature. The second day is a lot about formality and, conducting the meetings, et cetera. So just kind of depends what your preference is.
So it's a couple of days, you
It's
think?
usually a couple of days. They're usually spaced out by at least a month.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not, 2 consecutive days out of your schedule, but
Yeah. We wouldn't want to cloud our judgment with facts.
And legal process.
Well, the fact is that Georgia planning law is primarily set in the courtroom and not so much set,
Yeah.
in OCGA straight
Yeah.
out. So it's good to have that information.
Does DCA conduct that themselves, or do they hire somebody to present?
They work with ARC, and they typically bring outside counsel in. Those folks usually do it gratis. That's part of
Oh, yeah.
giving back. But
Would we be able to know who that outside counsel is before
I
we
can tell you
get
who
to attend?
typically does it. Frank Jenkins does it a lot. David Kirk does it a lot. Some of the names you've probably heard all around. I think Ken's probably done it before. So
John, remember John Maximoff
I remember the name, but
from Fulton? You worked with him. You know John.
that might have been after me.
No, you knew him. You're not remembering very much tonight, Rob. Anyway, he presented. They did a nice job. They got the city manager from Decatur to talk about their some of their issues. I thought they did a pretty nice job.
Mr. Chairman, before I make a motion to dismiss, did we decide we were or were not meeting in May?
We are going to meet on a regular
We are
scheduled
gonna-
time in May, yes.
I make a motion that we, yes.
Before you adjourn,
I didn't.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I can ask the question afterward. Go ahead.
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
I second
Oh,
it.
sorry. So it's moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? If you are, it's one absence.
Yeah.